All right, welcome to the 2025 first MBIA webinar. My name's Sean Pine. I'll be assisting a lot of these this year. We're going to be doing 5 this year. First one is obviously industrial relations. We're going to be doing stuff about equipment. We'll be doing stuff about leasing and finance. We're doing some on social media. So we want to make this about for all bakeries to jump on, listen to there's some very important topics out there. None more important than industrial relations, which we will start on this time. Special guest, Dean Musgrave from the MBIA, and we've got Craig Pollard here as well. Thank you, Craig. Obviously, some testing times out there for bakeries at the moment. Cyclone Alfred is obviously bearing down on Queensland, which is going to cause a lot of issues. There are a number of IR issues relating to that cyclone. Do you want to quickly touch on that just quickly?
Yeah, sure. So we know that a lot of businesses are closing over the period of the cyclone. So I've spoken to a few members this morning. They're closing from midday tomorrow, and will be closed Friday and more than likely Saturday and Sunday as well. Now, there's the ability for employers when there's a stoppage of work for which they can't be held responsible, they can stand employees down without pay. What's important is the stoppage of work, right? And it has to be because of maybe damage to the building, electrical outage, flooding, nobody can access the site, that sort of thing. That is when there's a stoppage of work. So you can't get your staff in, or even if they could get in, they can't actually do anything of any real value. That's when you can write to your employees and say, look, we don't have any work for you right now. We're going to have to stand it down. That stand down can be without pay. So you're not obligated to pay people. It's not that you're not allowed to, you're just not obligated to. You can give people the opportunity to take annual leave if they've got any accrued. They can also take long service leave if they've got any accrued. There are some limited circumstances where they could take personal carers leave, but by and large, it'll be unpaid leave. Okay. The important thing to remember is they continue accruing things while they're on stand down. So they continue to accrue sick leave. They continue to accrue annual leave. Nothing stops just because they can't attend work. But the other circumstance that we're coming up with at the moment is, or that we're facing is, employers are choosing to close their business out of an abundance of precaution, or abundance of caution, sorry. And it's not a stoppage of work for which they can't be held responsible. It's a stoppage of work because they don't want to have the store opened. In that case, they have to continue paying their staff as if they had worked. Okay, so we can't close the business and say, right, well, you're all off on unpaid leave until I decide we're going to reopen. It is paid leave. They're basically paid as per their roster. It doesn't come out of their annual leave accrual. It doesn't come out of their sick leave accrual. It's just additional paid leave. And it is that until such time as the building is damaged. Okay, so if flooding happens or the cyclone rips the roof off or destroys the electricity system, in that case, as soon as that happens, that's when the unpaid stand down can commence, not before. Okay, so those are the two circumstances, and we've put together a template letter. If you do have to stand staff down, and I think, Melissa, we're distributing that if we haven't already. We'll put it on the website, and you can members can tailor that to suit what they're offering staff and what the circumstances are.
Craig, just on that, so you've got members that are not affected by the cyclone. That similar case would be the same if there was fire, if there was flooding. So down in Victoria, down there's obviously fires. I've had extremely bad fires down there. This would affect obviously those areas in any natural disaster. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly correct. Any circumstance like that. So, for example, I had a client down in Victoria. Their plant burnt down because of nearby grass fire set the roof on fire. Now that was a $30 million plant, I think, from memory, and burnt to the ground. So the staff that worked there, and there was about 150 of them, they were all stood down without pay until the plant could be rebuilt. And that took 2.5 years. So there were staff that continued working, continued to be employed on full unpaid stand down for that entire period. Many obviously went and found other jobs and never came back. But yeah, essentially in the case of any sort of disaster, any sort of incident that shuts down the business, the employer has the ability to kick in the unpaid stand down thing. But as I said before, it has to be outside of their control. So if it's because there's some issue that's arisen that they can be driven home to, so for example, they ran out of supplies and it was because they didn't order it in time, that's not a stand down. That's a bakery problem that you're going to have to pay the employees for.
Do you reckon there are many bakeries out there, Craig? And obviously I'll put this to the guys down at Cobram down there. Have you had any instances like that before where you've had to shut your bakery down there, guys?
You're on mute, guys.
Unmute. Oh, they can't hear us.
You're on mute. We can't hear you.
They can't hear us.
They can't hear us.
No, they can't hear us because they're on mute. I haven't got Damo's number. Just on that.
Oh,
Craig,
hang on. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Now, great.
you-
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Can you just repeat that
I
again?
just said, yeah, absolutely. So, no, I just want to thank you, Pyney, for bringing that forward to Craig, because we do live in a heavily forest area. So, you know, if something like that does arise, we know that you guys have a template and things in action that we can look to and you know, move forward pretty quickly with. So, touch wood, no, it hasn't happened as yet. But these natural disasters are only getting bigger and worse, aren't they? So at the end of the day, it's great. It's great to know that you guys have got something there in motion, so we can, if something does happen, we can act straight away.
So can I ask the question? Obviously, because we live on border towns, and we have had what situation a couple of years ago where we had flooding. So because, you know, from New South Wales to Victoria, you know, we were very close where we couldn't get over.
Yeah, our employees live in New South Wales, but we're in Victoria, you see, right on the border over the Murray River on the bridge. So what Lena's trying to say, if we had a flooding event that closes down the causeway here where people can't get from New South Wales to Victoria, would that be a similar situation that we could act on?
Well, that's a slightly different one in that the bakery, I mean, if you're in the Victorian side and you can open the bakery, but your employees can't actually get to work.
Yep. Okay.
That's a different situation. They're still on unpaid leave. It's not a stand down. It's just they can't attend work. And if they're not attending work, you don't have to pay them.
Yep, that makes sense, Craig.
What about the employer that can't get over?
If the employer
We're New South Wales.
Okay. So if you're the only ones with the keys.
Yeah, well, we have our managers that have keys. But at the end of the day, one of us has to be there for our business to sort of
keep it going,
to run. We could let it go for 3 or 4 days, but I couldn't see, you know, if it was a flooding event of a week or two, I would hate to think what would happen without one of us there.
Well, I mean, you've got a couple of issues there. If it runs for more than a couple of days, you're going to have supply issues. You're going to have a whole bunch of other things that are going to feed into it. So the short answer is, if the business can open and operate, then we can't call it a stand down, right? Because then you're choosing not to open it and run it because you don't want to run the risk of someone doing something silly when you're not there watching them. Slightly different situation. But when it gets to a critical point where you can't actually operate because you can't get your material supplies, and the guys are starting to hit each other with rolling pins, that's when you can call the shutdown and say, look, I'm sorry, but we can't open. We can't operate.
Okay.
No, excellent,
That's
Craig.
good. Thank you.
So, but basically, Craig, there's a template available for all the members. Obviously, whether it's a cyclone, thunderstorms, fire, flood, we're going to make sure that we have these templates available across the board, which is great. Just moving forward, obviously, 2025 saw a number of new IR rules come in. Craig, do you want to touch on probably the most important ones that have come in?
Well, there's two really significant ones. The first one is what's called the criminalisation of wage theft. That's what everybody knows it as. And the important distinction to make with that is that it is the criminalisation of deliberately setting your business up in such a way that you cannot make a profit without underpaying your staff, right? So it's not a situation where you misinterpret an award, or you there's an error with the bookkeeping and somebody has erroneously put in $25 an hour instead of $52 an hour, and then that doesn't get picked up for some reason. That's not wage theft, okay? That is an underpayment of wages, and nobody's going to go to jail for that. What's happened is they've introduced this new criminal offence, which is chargeable for the decision makers of the business. So it's not just the director who could well go to jail. It could be the general manager who institutes a policy and then or follows a policy instituted by the director, and they know that these employees are going to be underpaid. They know that entitlements that should be paid are not being paid or offered. So where that happens, the Fair Work Ombudsman is now empowered to investigate those claims and then recommend cases to the Department of Public Prosecutions for prosecution. And if somebody is convicted, they could well end up in jail for 2 years. So it's a significant new development in industrial law, because this has never been the case before. I mean, it's only been a decade that we've had criminal prosecutions possible for people who die at work. Now we've got them for someone who is not paid correctly. So that is a huge change. It's not something that our members should be fearful of, unless they have set up a business in such a way they know they can't afford to pay the award wages. So they say, well, what we'll do is we'll employ foreign students on $15 an hour, pay them cash. Okay. If that's how they've decided to set up their business, if that's how they've decided to operate, and it's clear that the only way they can buy their house, make their money, do whatever is if they operate in that way, they're the ones this is aimed at, and they're the ones that will end up going down. So think of similar cases that this has all been based on is what happened within 7-Eleven several years ago. What happened with the supermarket trolley collectors a number of years ago. Now we're talking underpayments there of in as far as Coles was concerned, they had to pay the employees of these contractors $14 million. Woolworths had to come up with similar money. So it's where businesses enter into these arrangements knowing what the outcome will be. That's where they're going to face serious concerns.
Is
the
that
other one?
Policy, just quickly, Craig, that policy came in on January 1, is that right?
Yeah, it came in from January this year, and it only applies to offences committed after January. So they can't go back and sue and prosecute you for underpaying somebody in December last year.
It has to be
It's only for those ones from January.
Yeah.
The other significant change that affects our members in particular, because we have such a large number of retail operators, is the changes to the casual conversion rules. So we all sort of got used to the old practice of once a year looking through the rosters, seeing what the patterns were, and making offers to people if we felt we could have a reasonable chance there's going to be a job there for them next year for the same hours and so on. What they've done is they've introduced what's now a pathway to conversion. And in the Act, what it says is, after an employee's been employed for 12 months, if they don't believe they meet the criteria of a casual employee anymore. They can write to the employer and say, I don't believe I meet the test for being a casual anymore. I would like I believe I'm now a part-time or full-time worker. And the employer's got 21 days within which to respond to that. If they don't, the employee is full-time or part-time, right? You don't have a choice. If they do respond, they can refuse, they can say, no, that's not correct, but they have to give written reasons. So what has also happened is, you know how when we employ people, we have to give them the employee information statement. Well, if you're a casual employee, you've had to be given a casual employee information statement for a few years now. What they've introduced now is every year you have to give out the casual employee information statement to your employees on the anniversary of their employment. So every year you have to dish it out. There you go. There it is. Now you can either put it up on your wall at work. You can email it to people on a semi-regular basis if you want, as long as we meet that minimum requirement of giving people the statement once a year. So it's going to be top of mind for the staff, right? So they're going to say, right, well, I don't think I meet this test of being casual anymore, so I want to go full-time or part-time. And when I say I want to go full-time or part-time, it's a case of if they're working 38 hours a week, they can choose to go, or they can say I'm now full-time. If they're working 20 hours a week, they can only say I'm now part-time. They can't say, oh, I'm going full-time now, because you don't have to find another 18 hours a week for them, right? So it's whatever their pattern is as a casual. And the key point here is we employ a lot of casuals on weekends, nights, like late night trading, a lot of junior casuals, all of that sort of thing. So this is going to be something that employers need to be aware of, because if they're caught out, what they could find themselves with is employees who are part-time or full-time but are earning 25% casual loading plus entitled to annual leave, sick leave, and payment of public holidays. So that could be a significant cost if it's not managed properly.
So back in I think in the 90s, they did a similar thing, that if you did continuous hours for a period of time, you had to roll them over to a full-time employee. Back then, what we did is that we would reduce hours so there wasn't a continuous run of hours of 20 hours a week. Is it something that the guys would have to do to not have to go down these track if they break these hours up, that it's not a continuous saying that they've done 20 hours a week, that they could be a part-time permanent?
Look, unfortunately, the case law's moved on since then.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm saying that's what happened then. But that's what we did to negate the fact to roll people over to take on everyone as a permanent employee.
Yeah, and what's happened?
What's something we could put in place? Well, let the members know that, okay, to try to negate this is what can we put in place as a business owner?
It's very difficult to negate it, right? The reason it's very difficult is because at the moment, originally it used to be that I'll start at the start here. In order for an employee to be a casual employee, a genuine casual employee, they cannot be employed on a regular and systematic basis. So for a long time, regular and systematic was interpreted as being same hours every week. That interpretation has now changed significantly. So the phrasing regular and systematic is still in the Act, but the courts are saying regular and systematic does not have to be the same hours. It doesn't even have to be the same pattern of hours. What it is the casual knows they'll get some hours next week. They don't know what they are, but they know that they don't have to look for another job because they're going to get hours with Bob's Bakery. So even if we were to say, right, you can break your hours up so they're doing 30 hours this week, they're doing 10 hours next week, they don't have any hours in week number 3, but they're going to get another 20 hours in week number 4. the courts are saying that's regular and systematic. And so this is the problematic thing about it. The only thing that an employer can do to prevent or to hold off a conversion to ongoing employment, I'll call it, is to say we can't guarantee these hours are going to be available in 12 months. Because just because it's been going well for the last 6 or 12 months or 18 months even, that's no guarantee that it will continue for the next 12. And the reason for that is there's problems in the economy, the people's tastes are changing, and we don't know how much longer this product line will last. We're going to have to consider what we do with our staff. There could be a number of different things that feed into it, right? In the case of regional bakeries, it could be they're building a bypass and our town's going to die. I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen in 12 months' time. So that's the only basis on which that an employer really can hold off converting someone. But I have to say, it's cost neutral as far as permanent part-time casual is concerned. It used to be advantageous financially to employ people on a casual back in the days when the casual loading was 19 to 23%, and we're talking late 80s here. But now that the casual loading is 25%, it's line ball as far as the value to the organisation or the cost to the organisation of employing casual versus part-time. The only benefit, and it's a spurious one, is the flexibility available to employing a casual employee, and also the view that we can terminate a casual employee without a risk of unfair dismissal. But of course, that's also not correct once they've worked for you for 6 months, or if you're in a small business, 12 months, and they've worked on that, as I said before, regular and systematic basis. They can sue for unfair dismissal the same as a full-time worker can. So what I would say is think carefully about why we want to not convert people to full-time or part-time, because from a cost side, it doesn't save us anything, really. You're paying them less. You lose the 25% loading, of course. Yes, you have to pay sick leave, but not everyone takes every single day of sick leave. Yes, you have to pay annual leave. And yes, you have to replace them when they're on leave, but you have to replace a casual when they're on leave too, and you're paying them the 25% loading for flexibility. So what I'd like members to do is open up to the idea of putting on their weekends and their high school students as part-timers. And I think it could well work. You'd still have a level of flexibility. You can still change rosters. You can still adjust hours. It just takes a little bit of planning.
Craig, just on that, mate, there's a lot of changes, obviously, to the IR policies out there. There's a lot of bakeries out there that I visit personally that are just working. And I'm going to put the question to Damien and Lena in a second. But Craig, what would you recommend out there that bakeries should be doing on a regular basis to make sure they're all up to date with the current IR policies?
Well, we've got our handbook, which we offer to members. That's always a useful resource. Look, the best thing they can do is stay tuned to updates, make sure they follow up what the current wage rates are. The biggest issue employers face is around about May, June every year when we get the Fair Work Commission increase decision. Employers have to be on top of that. The other stuff is just being a decent person, right? It's not hard to comply with the law in reality. People like me, we love paperwork because it makes our job a lot easier. So by paperwork, I mean, if you have a discussion with an employee, record it. make sure you've got a record of it. If you employ someone, make sure you give them a contract of employment so that you know what you're agreeing to. Those sorts of basic things are all that you really need to do. Get the wages right. All the other stuff that we carry on about, look, Pyney, it makes great headlines, but in day-to-day management of a business, it's about getting on with your staff. It's about treating them nicely, about not being afraid to direct people to do their job, and asking for advice when you need it.
Yeah,
That's what it
that's a good
comes down
point.
to.
That's a great point. That's a really good, and that's obviously something our members have access to. Dean, just go quickly to you. Obviously, our members have access. I'm going to come back and ask Damien a question in a second, but Dean, just quickly, our members have access to Craig. They've got members to the handbook. Do you want to briefly explain that as well out there?
Yeah, look, at any time that you're unsure before you proceed with something, I do recommend that you give us a call, Craig a call, to make sure that everything is clarified before you proceed. The access is good for us. The telephone numbers come straight through to our office. If no one answers it generally comes straight through to my phone, and then I'll process from there and get it through to Craig. But it's really important that before you proceed and do something with any employer, if you're unsure, check first before you act.
Yeah, and that's really important. One of the things that Dean and I have noticed too, like obviously Dean visits a lot of bakeries, I visit a lot of bakeries out there, is that, we're encouraging our owners to work on their business, not in their business, so to speak. And that's really important. And Damien, you guys and Lena run a highly successful business, an award-winning business. Do you want to just briefly explain what measures that you've put into place that have kept you up to date with all these current changes of policies?
Yeah, sure, Piney. I'll get Lena to explain, the contract sides of things and whatever else, but I will touch that Lena and I, we do everything by the book. We refuse to pay cash in hand to employees. In any circumstance, we've been asked many occasions, and we will refuse to do it. We're the most unluckiest two ever. So if we ever done it, we'd be the ones that got caught. You know what I mean? So, but we do.
I know there's plenty out there that do it.
All jokes aside, I know there's plenty of them.
There's heaps.
But
Yeah.
I know, Piney. I know. But Lena and I, we refuse to do any of that. Every single one of our employees, when they're employed, definitely given a contract of employment. Lena has a diary here. I'll let you go on because you do it all. So with the employees, so she has a diary here with all the dates and that they're employed and everything else. We're aware of the fact that of the 12-month thing with the casuals and everything like that. We have actually had a couple of casuals that we've given time to and asked whether they want to go full time, but they've wanted to refused and wanted to stay on casual wages, which is fine by us either way. But Craig, you are spot on. These days it is now that minimal of employing a full time to a casual staff member. It's more or less an even playing field with them. So we look at it as many full-time employees as we could rather than casuals, but it's their choice. We give them the choice and that's their choice they make. Is there anything else? Yeah.
The only question I have, obviously you have casual employees, and obviously, giving them, 3 hours 1 week and just to, so they don't have with the conversion, like you said. But the only thing is that obviously you give them, say, 20 hours 1 week and 10 hours the next week and then nothing the next. It's really hard because then they see that, they need to go get another job. Because, they don't have those constant hours.
Yeah.
As such. I try not to have many employees. We're only a small bakery, so I mean we can't fit that many girls in our shop.
Wish we could.
But do you know what I mean? And then they start, saying, "Oh, I'm not getting enough hours here. I'm going to go," and then you're back to trying to find employees again.
Yeah. So we're maxed out at 6 in the shop at any one time in girls. We can't even fit that. Like, you know, on our busiest days, if we can,
we're lucky we get 4.
because otherwise they just fall over each other, and we're only got a small shop front. So although we get bloody lines of people going out the door, we still bloody try to tick through them, and we've negated that with, you know, putting in second tills and everything like that. But at the end of the day, we still can only have so many out there. And, you know, it gets disappointing, actually. I thought a couple of the girls that were casual that we asked to go on the full time would grab the opportunity, but yeah, they surprised us with a no, and they'd rather stay on the casual wages, and that's fine by us, as we said to them. And they're great girls and they're loyal to us and everything like that. But as Lena said, if you get one every now and then they go get that second job, we're putting them on casual hours, and they come back to us and say, "Oh, no, I can't work that hours because I'm working at such and such that day." You know what I mean? So it becomes difficult.
And that's why I'm saying chopping and changing hours for casual. Look, in a small operation, it's just not worth it. Humans are funny mammals, right? We love consistency. We don't want great. We just want same.
I love that.
Yeah. So
Craig.
We want the same thing all the time. No surprises, please. Just let me know what to expect. So if we can give that to our staff, we'll have happy staff. Right? We don't need all the bells and whistles. We just need consistency. We need same. So if you can give your employees those consistent hours, if you can do it up front as a part-time employee, brilliant, right? You don't ever have to worry about casual conversion. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. If you want to suck it and see, start them off as a casual and understand that in time, that will more than likely be part-time, and it may well work in your interest to be part-time, right? But be open. What I'm proposing is just be open to the idea that there is another way of doing things. We fall into these traps because we're mammals too, and we love the same thing all the time. So we're used to dealing with casuals, and it's a really difficult thing to get people to reconsider that employment pattern.
Yeah, because I try and usually when I put them on, sorry, Pyney, I tell them on the interview or whatever, you know, like I'll put them on casual for 3 months and see how they go.
That's
you know,
very common.
And obviously it gives me that, you know, flexibility to see how they go.
Just quickly, Lena, how much time do you spend? Obviously, you guys are exceptionally busy. How much time do you spend like making sure this sort of stuff and is 100% right in your business?
You don't want to know, Pine.
And
I'm trying to juggle both.
Yeah.
Shop and you know, it's shop and doing this. It's really hard.
It's very difficult, and that's the question why I actually wanted to ask you guys is because there are so many bakeries out there that are not doing this that potentially could open themselves up to a fair bit of trouble. Because they're more concerned about getting a loaf of bread out than making sure that their back end systems are 100% correct. And I know that how successful you guys are, and the fact is that you do spend a lot of time on that, which is a real credit to you guys.
Yeah, it is hard, as some of you know, trying to juggle both your shop and your paperwork. You just it's like you say, 24/7.
But it's so really important, Craig, isn't it, to make sure that they get this right?
It is. It's too important, and the penalties and the risks to the business of getting it wrong are just so many and varied and horrifying. That what I say to people, what I say to members is, as soon as you open your own bakery and start employing people, you're a manager now. You're not a baker anymore, right? Getting up at midnight and working with dough is now a hobby. That's what you do for fun, because the work is actually managing people and all of the stuff that goes into it. So yes, they're there to help you, but they're helping you with your hobby, right? That midnight thing that you do for kicks. What you have to concentrate on during the day and take up the major focus of your work now is making sure that your staff are working efficiently, effectively, and are being paid and contracted correctly.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
And what this all comes back down to is what I said before. Let's not get too tied up on all of the legislation and the statutes and all that sort of stuff. Let's focus on the basics. And the basics are making sure that we employ people in such a way that they know what we want them to do. They know how we want them to do it. They know what they'll be paid for doing the work that we ask them to do. And we know that what we're paying meets our statutory obligations.
Mhm.
And as long as we do those 4 basic things and we don't, sexually harass anyone or abuse anyone, or, we treat people like another reasonable, decent human being, you'll fly. It will be okay. The stress you're worrying about is making sure that the butter is perfect. All right, the sandwich is made, but you're just checking to make sure the butter is perfect. That's what it is.
That's perfect, and that's really good advice, Craig. Does Christy or Catherine or the Maury Bank, has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask Craig? They're all on mute, I think.
Yeah,
just take yourself off mute if you have a question.
If you have any questions, please
We've
let
got
us know.
5 minutes left.
Yeah, just quickly, guys, too. I know look, industrial relations is boring. I understand that, but it is so crucial. Apparently to Craig, it's not. But it is so crucial to get this right in your business. If you do not get this right, I think the innocence of days gone by is, I didn't know, or I didn't,
Yep.
I didn't know that would affect me. Those days are gone. There is no excuse now for not paying someone correctly, and there's enough resources within the MBIA team to make sure that you've got the right people to talk to, and the right modules and procedures that you can basically ask any question to any time to anyone. This is a topic that I believe is not going to go away. If anything, it's going to get more and more every year. You'll see more and more rules come into place. So it is really important that you spend time on your businesses, not in your business, making sure that you have these procedures correct. Because the last thing that you want to be done or do is being dragged through to court because of an incorrect thing that you were not aware or too ignorant to do. Craig, is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we've had recent experience where an employer made an agreement with a staff member to pay them a certain amount, and it was above the award, but not much. And then that person worked a lot of hours because they wanted all the hours. They needed hours. They constantly had their hand out for hours. Turned out that over a period of 6 years, that person was underpaid a 6-figure sum, and the employer had to find that money and pay it.
Jesus.
Because after that, I mean, and they were saying at the time that they agreed to work for that dollar, that amount. That was a flat rate. They agreed to it. Well, this isn't fair. And I said, you can't agree to pay less than the award, and they can't agree to earn less than the award. You can't contract out of your entitlements, right?
Yep.
And so this is a constant thing that I've had over the last 30 years, is employers will say, look, I made an agreement with this worker to work for this amount, and they agreed to it. Why should I now pay them the extra? And the answer is because employees will agree to work themselves to death. That's why we have workplace health and safety laws, because they will put themselves in danger if there's money in it, right?
That's
It's
the other
our
one
job
too,
to make
Craig.
sure they do the right thing.
Is in our industry is very known that no one has breaks. Don't have lunch breaks and morning tea. You've got to have a break, because the first thing, if someone gets their ham jammed in a machine, the first questions are going to be asked, when was your last break?
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
Dean, yeah, absolutely. I've got to force my boys some
Yeah,
night.
my
They just,
bank do the
I'll be
same
right
thing.
there, mate. No, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you've got to go.
Yep.
And we do it. We make sure we do it. You know, we
Yeah.
don't. Yep, absolutely. I refuse not to let them have. They've got to have it, and you know, don't care.
I
Christy,
think
did you
this
have
is
a
a
question?
real.
Yeah, I
So
think Christy's got a question, I
Oh, sorry.
believe. I've seen her
Okay, I just
flag
wanted
up.
to know if you could quickly touch base on casuals and long service leave.
Yeah, sure. So, what state are you in, Christy?
Queensland.
Okay. So casuals get the same accrual as full-timers, or the same per hour accrual. If a casual was to work 38 hours a week every week, like a full-time worker, they would get 8.6667 weeks at the end of 10 years service, exactly the same as a full-time worker.
Okay. Is it? My boss was asking me. I haven't actually looked it up, but he said he thought there was something that had come into place in recent times about after 8 years they're entitled to a pro rata.
It's after 7 if they
7.
leave for a certain reason. So if their employment ends because they're unfairly dismissed, they're made redundant, they die, or if they're terminated because of illness or incapacity or domestic or other pressing necessity, they can be paid out their pro rata entitlement to long service leave after 7 years service.
Okay. Right. That's good. Thank you.
All right.
Which Christy, Letta and I have just done that with one of our employees, to be quite honest with you. 8 years, she's just gone on her long service. She's back now, but she had a long service over the Christmas break. So after 8 years. So yeah.
Christy,
we
can I just
only have
ask?
one employee who. What was that? Sorry.
Could I just ask quickly which bakery you're from?
From the Merino Bakery.
Okay, perfect, excellent, thank you.
Out in Longreach.
Longreach.
Yeah. Way out
Beautiful,
west.
beautiful spot. My first day of primary school was at Longreach.
Good little bakery too.
Oh.
Many moons ago, 1982 was my very first day of primary
Is
school.
that when you used to use slate?
It was St. Joey's out there at the time. It's a great little bakery. I've actually reviewed your.
They just had their 125 anniversary actually last weekend.
Yeah, great
could have
spot.
went, Sean.
My father lived out there. I lived in Quayle Street, so a lovely little spot out there. You guys run a great bakery out there.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Absolutely. I've actually reviewed your pies too, so they're good. Just quickly, guys, this is just the tip, Craig, of issues that are bakeries out there. We're going to continue, obviously, at the MBIA and through BETA, just doing more and more work around the IR stuff, because I think it's something that's really, really important. It's not going to go away. We are going to I'd like to run another, I haven't spoken to Dina, I'd like to run another one of these later in the year, to basically come back and see what people have put into place as a result of our webinar. We're going to get some feedback. Just before we go away, though, with what's happening in Queensland, it is so important to make sure that you check your insurance policies. We have KBI Insurance, Lockie Stretton. I was over to see Lockie in Perth 10 days ago. They are the premier insurance guys for the baking industry. He's a tremendous fella, offering free reviews to our clients, to our bakeries. They are the largest probably bakery insurance company in Australia. So it is so important to make sure that you have got adequate insured. You make sure you have fire, flood. You need to make sure what your thing is. It's also important that when you buy new equipment, you get that updated and you increase your insurance policy on that. So for all the guys out there that will be seeing this webinar that aren't able to join in, please check your current insurance policy. It is vital that we do that, but others too, to make sure that you don't have any pitfalls if you come to make a claim. So
And you're
we'll
not
put a link.
underinsured.
Underinsured. Lockie
Massively
has
critical.
Yeah, Lockie has saved a lot of our members a lot of money. He's a tremendous fella. He can look at your policy within 2 seconds and go, yes, no, you haven't got this, you got this. What happens if this happens? So whether it's fire damage, flood damage, storm damage, whatever, it is really important to make sure that you have got adequate insurance. Craig, thank you very, very, very much for joining us today. I know This is a topic that I think is so important. Dean, you and I have discussed it many times. Guys, thank you for joining in. Damien and Lynn, thank you for your contribution as well. Melissa, we might put something on the socials, which I'll do next week, around questions that that could arise as a result of that. And obviously, we want bakeries to ask questions. We want them to feel as though they're confident enough to call you, to call our team, to make sure that we nip any concerns in the bud before it gets to a point where that, Craig, that example that you did before, that cost that bakery a lot of money. So we want to make sure that you don't have that in your business. Thank you for joining this. Our next one's going to be in a few months' time, social media, which I will be doing. So we're going to talk about the importance of social media. We're going to talk about what you should be doing in your businesses. But this is one of 5 webinars that we'll be doing for non-members and members. But it's also very important that if you are a member, or if you're not a member, we want you to join. If you are a member, you have access to Craig down below and the team. So stay safe, have a great day, and Lennon, I'm going to come down and see you guys in a couple of months. So
we'll see. I just like to say thanks, Craig. That was fantastic, mate. Really, really was. Thank you very, very much. Muchly
Pleasure. Thanks very
appreciated.
much.